cocoa di Ghana when you home for so bibia wom de goro ho timendia wo ho no wo nyina wo nyi din de cocoa anti cocoa di oyada fa so wo ho pa se mewu ha sesia na wo senda ye phone na wakaka kire wo mikroma da panyina kufu wewu a be ho se mikrofon no obi se do okoi oye adwuma o cocoa
takala ni boni zondelani naone boni buzani one boni buzani
the friend Kofi Sara mi papa ena de mi na mi papa so na ma mbepie ha enam kuyadumanti na ma mbepie se be hwe banchi ni koko na sika wo mu a me ya ebeboa mi se me di ebehwe daachi me ma se ma ware no me di behwe me yire ni me ba aha
e fa me geba masa ye wi eje chese no na sika ni ho a de beto aso je se ye be ye kuadwuma kakra se wi a ye betumi ato aso na me ba fofo ni de na koko na asai nti e kam efom kakra nti me ana me ba ebebre ho kakra na me ye ni ye up to sisi aye nti ma me bre kakra to the bikra de be di kra no eji.
My name's Rebecca Ashley Asari, and I started with NCRC in 2009. At the time, I was transitioning out of my PhD work, which had focused on cocoa. NCRC stands for Nature Conservation Research Center.
We are trying to see the economics and then how the farmers grow cocoa, how do they get benefit, and what about the challenges and the difficulties. So we are trying to see the ecosystem between the forest and the cocoa.
So when you look back at the history of cocoa production in Ghana, and the first cocoa beans were planted well over 100 years ago. So this is a crop that's really instilled in the cultural practice of the landscape. And it's been a way for people to make money and to claim land. And in the early days, because there weren't chainsaws, cocoa was grown underneath the shade canopy, simply because you couldn't take down the really big trees.
It was super free mine, cause and I'm cocoonti, Yan school, and I'm cocoonti, Sabiana Quanwa. Nothing so young, one way did a jaffo to me by me to 32B. So first a partner by whom no she, Upe, in Chilatocratis or Lanti, about 5 miles and now 6 miles and San Wendy.
Cocoa side, I feel there. When I'm giving a year afibia, a fibia of our cocoa bit me pass on fine. You'll be so near on don't want to be better to find. If so hard, the old Union, your funny side, the afibia near the Achafidim. The way there a year, a few way there, a beer and so cry.
Say a bra. Bekono na ho no I say koko and I say yellow. Until say we no sa na you say mo ye mienu ba ko te ho the basket esi ho. Until wo ba na wo dey atuma no na ono so de ne nsa because the over pan halfway. Until betumi de ne nsa na akọ inside no wa twe ne abana wo mu no egu basket ni. Until sa until wo ba de gumu wo mu boni na awie a na mo pe kwadu. That was banana leaves. And mode aseho. And mode cocoa no mabon. Nina mudi guso because liquid no or say a free a gua bounce menuko a goo from. Metia metina me boa, me di goo or me buano a fumo. Need 4 or 5 days. Na ma fa doma come on ya kutu abefi. Na ma be dry ho. And until die be born yes ada na de be fi. Ya di go de haban guso. And sunny de abefi be dry.
Well, that fermentation process, if you talk to local farmers, is unique to Ghanaian cocoa production. So Ghanaian cocoa has always been regarded as high quality for chocolate production because of this process that intensifies the flavours.
In olden days, the forest was bigger than the farmland, and we get more rainfall, good yield, and less disease. But nowadays, because of we have few forests and big farmland, now the disease attack the cocoa more than the olden days.
It's a two-way project. We have the ecosystem service or the ecological aspect, and we have the social science aspect. The main idea is to see how ecological services are of benefit to cocoa landscapes, and also the negative effects the forest also brings to these cocoa landscapes.
I suppose the last 10 years at least, there's kind of been this massive interest in ecological circles, conservation circles, to look at the ecological value of different ecosystems like forests, oceans, whatnot, and how those specifically benefit humans.
For me, why the concept of, or the idea of studying ecosystem services that derive from the forest and go out into the cocoa landscape is so interesting is because the forest has a lot of value and helps keep a healthy landscape.
We're really interested in looking at how farms in the neighbourhood of large areas of intact forests are affected by ecologically by proximity to that forest. We're working around a large area of natural forest called Cocoon National Park. We're working in what we call forest agriculture systems, and these are systems where the agricultural part of the system is derived from what used to be a forest. So even if there are no trees there anymore, the soils were from the forest. And so in our language we say that the farming systems depending on services that ultimately were derived from the forest that was originally there.
Cocoa basically abuts all of the forest areas in Ghana. So if you have a chance to look at a satellite image of Ghana, you see a lot of like odd shaped forest reserves.
You will see some very sharp edges between the forest areas and the rest of the landscape. And that's because the only areas of intact forest left in Ghana are inside protected areas.
Anybody na han na hela ina debie iha nti na kuro no wo ho hono huma ho
mveze baade na haya pa ni because tamba beji asase no me na ba first yo be do be mbire na mkoe na baade ni enam nyina fa na kwa am nyina ewura ne ya besu video bia wonya nam enwa o doza no afa bi emre nyina ni nje bizu na die kura se no mi bia ya ya fala senda enwa ni konkuro ngwa ya mawu
bra na forest ni medi aban mu ene ne tinu ko mu fa nwa fa mre fa kantani ade but nye de abio aba de nsa to so e me wa no forest no enua ni nti e ma yenye nsuo se nua ni ma mframa nso ko be twetwetwe ya dan so ko be bia what is it se nua ni me gye mframa no ma yeso ho to e kaka
e ba ko da ma ya ba ha ma tina ya ba sor ne ya kon na ya mbangiti ne ya ja won ho na wo ye from so shisho an ko sa ne ye bibie ndi ye de bai na ya ja won na mbom sa ta men na kunkum na na mai ha na mbom ne ye suro de abo bi beba na beba be honhon na do beba ba kiri won dam ta men na forest yi na yi ni na bom kurunti na mbom la yi na wo na so kwai na yi forest ni na ahia nti ne hu wo so yango pona dom ti ya kwa na ya betu ya man.
The entire cocoa is a hano. I did be any toy shed down, cos of papa. Would be a banshee, I am a top. Would be a body, I am top. The cocoa need the then I buy who say, but would be a cocoa, the our better amount, mounts when it's cardiac to be beard.
Pacho, I was a hundred, maybe in a couple of some. Why, yes, I'm out here, need when you scan through the two. You tell me you translate a baby. Cocoa and pass also. Now, would be an Hassan and Scout, but if you can say now, and then we do me another cocoa and penny for, and we didn't know when it's going to say open.
And the much my catch on sale. Quick me ya dibia eye. This the who woman now so was watching ye with the cocoa in whom. So would be a cocoa went to one door into the dim wow.
Yaba fasten na a juana I bayen, no cocoa no so. If you never cocoa now than aquafo. Then then saw them a fasten. Cram more kind of Ghana ya dancing as it. Feel a bang arancasan in them. Number me, I am watching now where everyone. Ned Anchin, my be more bad down, my friend. Yaya me yet, sir. Yes, you be pebby, if you. Now, get our shank for day.
Until no how another day, still I will more hand the infant because I'm watching for 1 hour, because cocoa no say to me, swat, no to me, you won't quite ask for my. Yes, one could school. If I couple to soon be a no, say, the pian and quite animal made a moco.
Sacride baby. They think I know. A bini said, send a cocoa is a son. And so say you, and more, baby, a hacocoon. Assassin also as a son. And now they are when you are the anini. Would you about there and ye? Just a cry, baby, and it's a assassin that ye did so name more. I return say woman in a no, eh,
Cocoa and the equanimity. Medibito a dronibi, a sewer. The bishop, Minqua maybe an abromiso, and the bishop bopana. The other cocoa nasi.
And then, who is it? And I say, and your master. And this affairs now, no cocoa, it me super, and then me answer, mean to me at the crack and potting yama and the cocoa, ain't to me to say first. Mean to me, first cramp, the walk around Pukraninki, Mugu corners, and so it me super. Then can I, you know, a deep by the bussy. Still now, corner the Janani. Safe for us, safe free.
Cocoa is going to be there, but what I'm seeing now is every day you expect things to go or everything to increase, but it seems it may not increase. It may remain the same or it may decrease.
The idea is, in terms of these eco limits that we talk about in the project, that Ghana gives us some insight into systems where those limits might have been reached and exceeded. One of the problems that they have in cocoa, particularly through exhaustion of soil nutrients, are because when you convert it into a farm, you take the trees away, you take that natural recycling of nutrients. So from a soil perspective, you take away the natural replenishment of the soil resources. So if you don't replenish those soil nutrients with fertilizers, either chemical ones or organic, using organic material to do so, then you've stopped that cycle and that cycle doesn't carry on. In terms of the kind of work we're doing, we're going out to the farms around Khartoum Forest and also in the forest itself, setting up plots from which we're marking trees and measuring all sorts of things like the productivity of the farm, the health of the soil. We're looking at insects that pollinate the crop. We're looking at how that pollination service works, so how many flowers get converted into fruits, etc.
So there's a trade-off between how much sun and shade and how productive the cocoa is. And so the more trees that the farmer leaves on the farm, then the more shade there is, and that may have benefits or disbenefits. Greater sun makes the cocoa trees more productive, and so they may actually produce more fruit. It does tend to age them faster, so we're sort of interested in that trade-off. Therefore, to get a good measure of shade, we're taking photos above the cocoa trees so that we can see all of what canopy trees are remaining.
We collect from 3 bowls, from 3 trees, so we're making it 9 in total. And the purpose for it is to know the kind of insects that pollinate these cocoa trees, and at which distance do these insects differ from those that pollinate from the forest.
So we're collecting all these different sets of data from individual points that we can then start to build up a picture of whether the pollination services that we see are affected by proximity to the forest, or the pests and diseases are more common in certain situations. So then we can try and unravel how we might help farmers manage the ecology of their farms in order to boost the benefits and reduce the disbenefits that they receive from the ecosystem.
NCRC is good at telling the story, and so we can take the data and information, and that's really grounded in a reality that the policymakers can understand, but then come to them and tell that story in a way that they can absorb and use. And so we're hoping that it feeds back to how do we improve things for these farmers.
ɛbɛkɔ me masai ɛnkɔdi obiara nsa sɛ me ne me yere ne me ma ne yɛyɛ nti sɛ ba sɛ sɛbi meni hɔ a ansa na sɛbi bɛkɔ me nkra akyiri kora na mayɛ ɛsɛ deɛ nsamansi ase ne deɛ na me deɛ ama me mabi sɛ me ma ne ɛboa me ma me yɛ sɛ adwuma no
sɛ da bɛ ne sɛ me ba sɛ me di hɔ a ɔno ara bɛ sɛ mbom sɛ afɛ da nyam bɔ mbɔ a afi wɔ asi mu mbom me deɛ me ana yɛra mete nti sɛ deɛ ma no ate nti me di hɔ a ɔm bɛyɛ anya asɛm deɛ mɛkyira what's my brother?
The entire ebi a me mama kɔgya wɔ no sɛ like ɛhɔ no nhyɛ da nyɛ afuo kɛseɛ a ɛbɛtumi aboa me wɔ me future
no. So megye tum paa sɛ ɛyɛ ade pa. Nti ama meka saa no sɛ yɛn nananom baeɛ no a kokoo na ɔmode tena ase ɛyɛ ya bɛdu saa bere sɛ kokoo no obi di hwɛ ne ba kɔ school this time obi mu wɔ abroad na ho nkeka ho that the kokoo ya nti kokoo no sɛ wofi ɛnyɛ ade pa anka this time no nka egu nka this time nka kokoo no hɔ bio nso ɛyɛ ade pa nti this time krampo amama boys a ade sɛ nka wɔn kɔ baabi sɛ wɔn kɔ pɛ adwuma yɛ nyinaa wɔn de wɔn ho ahyɛ kokoo no mu because ne sisi aso wohwɛ price no so a ɛwɔ mu no so a encourage new boys no bi sɛ wɔn nso bɛyɛ na wɔn nso enyi sika no bi wu nti megye sɛ ɛyɛ good still betumi sustain me I don't think say ebi a we no betumi collapse because entumi engu sa menye because yɛyɛ mfaso wɔ mu is very important.
If you walk through these farms, what you often find is there's quite a thick layer of leaf litter on the ground because it's not decomposing. Because if you walk through a forest, the leaf litter that is on the ground is usually all kind of gooey and half digested. It's really muddy, and the soil's really rich in organic material. So the farms, this all stops unless the farmers understand that effectively they're ecologists managing the ecology of a remnant forest system. They often don't intervene in the ways that system requires.
Almost like we still need to prove to people, to prove to the policymakers and the decision makers, and to sort of affirm to the farmers the value of the forest. It's almost like, there's a divergence in the road here, and we need to choose which path do we want to go down. Is it farmers who are more stressed and marginalized, and that's reflected in their farms, or there's sort of an intensification in effort and land. Not an intensification that's at the expense of forests and biodiversity and agrodiversity, but an intensification in terms of let's make it a more efficient and prosperous and ecologically balanced system.